Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Planning Board meeting of February 4th, 2020. Would you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Appointment of alternates. Ron, would you be interested in being a voting member this evening?
Yes.
We need one? Okay. We'll appoint Ron as an alternate for tonight. Roll call of members present. Michael Proto, Chair.
Kimberly Queen, Vice Chair.
Kate Stevens, member.
Ron Stevens, alternate.
James Buffetti, member.
Joshua Smith, member.
Kevin Lynch, Selectman's Rep.
First order of business, public input on non-agenda items not on the agenda for this evening. Is there anybody who has anything for public input on non-agenda items this evening? Hearing none, I'll close public input on non-agenda items and go to number one. A revision to the previously approved subdivision plan for 124 Hillcrest Road, Brookfield Acres, map 15, lot 14. State of Fred D. and Janet M. McQuestion, amending the stormwater infiltration per New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. Is the applicant present this evening? And would the applicant introduce himself to the board? His name.
Good evening. My name is Matt Peterson with Keach Nordstrom Associates. Here presenting the Brookfield Acres subdivision off of Hillcrest Road in Litchfield, New Hampshire. The owners are also here with me tonight.
My name is John Noseworthy. I'm the executor of the estate.
So just, I'm sorry. So we have before us this evening an amendment to a site plan that was conditionally approved on November 5th, 2019. Maybe you can provide us with some input of what's going on.
All right. So as you just stated, this was approved as a subdivision application site plan last month. During the process of working with the AOT, we basically are not able to infiltrate the stormwater on site. This comes from the St. Gobain issue that is plaguing Merrimack and now you guys and Nashua and a few other places here. At the current time, DES is trying to get their arms around how they're going to move forward with the St. Gobain pollutants of the soil, basically. And in doing so, they are not going to allow us to infiltrate into the ground until they understand how it travels, where it's traveling, what the issues are going to be with it. Obviously, you guys are on the planning board. You're probably pretty familiar with your town. You've got a lot of A soils in this town, a lot of good soils up and down the river that's there. So what happens in our pre-development runoff is there isn't any runoff. Everything in the pre-development is going into the ground right now or be collected by the trees, going into the soil and not running off to the different points that we have for the development. We have 4 points of interest on this. I'll get up to the plan here in a minute and show you those 4 locations that the drainage comes off the property. So working with AOT, and it's been an interesting battle. We actually asked them to approve it or deny it at one point because that's what Ridgemark recommended because they don't have their hands around this, how they're going to handle it in the state yet. So we've gone back to basically our standard kind of drainage designs now with open detention ponds, not taking into fact infiltration, which is probably going to happen to a certain extent on the soils anyway because we have here. But we're not allowed to take that in our drainage studies. So for the AOT permit, we've asked for a waiver from meeting pre and post runoff calculations. You guys have requirement under your stormwater section 155 that we have to match the 2-year pre and post runoff. That's the waiver we're here to ask for. The numbers are extremely low. We've designed this again to meet AOT requirements as best we can. The permit is pending right now. One stop has been down for a couple of weeks. We're trying to get everything worked out there with them. But the 4 points that we have is the first one is up by Hillcrest. And on the plan that I have over there, the yellow or the orange highlight is the 4 points. It's A, B, C, and D. They start close at the hillside with A. B is in the middle, C gets close to the end, and D is on my far left side here. which abuts some of the residents up in that location there, we actually do meet your requirement for the 2-year storm. We go with the pre of 0.59 and the post of 0.53. So that one there, we do meet your requirements. The waiver request would be for the other 3 that are located on that. And again, we're talking 0.27 CFS in the pre, and we're going to 0.44 in the post. So we're still not even talking 1 CFS of runoff with this. Again, we're holding the majority of the site in the detention basins. Number C, which is down further and getting towards the better soils, there's 0 runoff in the pre. In the post, it's 0.04. Again, we're not even at half a CFS on that one, not even registering 0.1. And then the last point, D, which is to the far left, again, the pre is 0.00 and our runoff is 0.14. We have to discharge something out of the ponds just to allow it to, over time, the volume goes out and stuff like that. To have 0 is, again, we had beforehand when we got these plans approved, infiltrated all in the ground, it's good. Now DS wants to have some type of outlet for the structure just so that it doesn't continually to fill up and doesn't go in the ground. So again, we've gone from 0.00 in the D to 0.14. We're talking C 0.00 to 0.04, C 0.27 to 0.44. We really feel like these are all pretty minor. Again, we've worked with AOT back and forth. This has been a drag down with them each month to kind of get something that works for both you guys and the state. So that's kind of why we're here tonight. I know you've got other things on the agenda, so I'll keep it short and sweet and take any comments you guys have.
Does the board have any questions for the applicant? Jay, did you want to comment on this?
Just a few comments. No problem or objection with granting the waiver. I think in this case, clearly it's unavoidable. This is a requirement that DES is putting on the applicant. So granting the waiver, I think, is reasonable. What I just want to note is that we have a plan set that was, or plans that an application that was approved on November 5th. The conditions of those approval have not yet been met, so the plan set hasn't been signed. What we received with the application were 6 sheets out of the original 25 sheets that were the plan set. So first, I just think it's important to stress that should the board grant the approval for, to amend the site plan, that the original conditions of approval remain in force. Presumably, their remaining sheets are unchanged. Most importantly, though, the plan set that was submitted doesn't reflect the approval that was granted on November 5th. So I think at everybody's site, you had a chance to see the minutes. I think what I'm particularly concerned with is the lot at the very end of the cul-de-sac was, according to the approval, was to be reduced to a 2.1 acre lot. And the balance was to be an open space lot. Over the entire portion of that open space lot was to be put under a deed restriction. So that was what was approved. That's not what's shown in the plan set. And I, would hesitate to have the board approve a plan set which would supersede the prior approval that doesn't reflect the intent of the board. While I would recommend approval and I would recommend granting the waiver on the condition that the plan is amended to reflect the conditions of approval and the requirements that were passed on November 5th.
And I would state to the board, from the applicant's standpoint, we're still taking care of the conditions of approval of that one. We didn't mean to supervent any plans or anything like that. So yes, we agree with all the comments. We're still condition approval on that.
And just to add, I assume that was the case, that it was inadvertent. I didn't think it was intentional.
Okay. I noticed Luke Herron did submit on January 19, 2020, a letter. Who isn't here this evening? Correct? No. Okay. I'll just read it into the record. This is to the Litchfield Planning Board. Dear Planning Board members, on January 7th, 2020, I received a revised subdivision plan sheets, 8 plan sheets, number 2, 4, 12, 15, 20, and 21, with a December 13, 2019 revision date. Some of the comments in my November 4, 2019 letter report have been addressed to my satisfaction. Those that still need some attention are included below. I have reviewed these plans and offer the following comments. Plan sheet 12 roadway plan. This revision will also affect the left side of the cross sections from station 14 plus 00 to 16 plus 50. Note, roadway cross sections were not included with this submission. Plan sheet 14 roadway profile. Please remove the drainage note at station 13 plus 00 referencing a proposed 15-inch RCP that is no longer part of the design. Note, the roadway profile was not with this submission. Plan sheet 19, construction details. Box culvert detail, please show the stream bed bottom on the box culvert details and check that the various wall presentation plans agree with each other with respect to the proposed channel bottom. Note, relative plan sheets were not with this submission. Plan sheet C3 roadway cross sections. For the cross section at station 9 plus 77, please reference the affected CBs at DCB number 10 and DCB number 11 to agree with the plan notes. Note, roadway cross sections were not with this submission. Plan sheet C12 roadway plan. Consider adding stone check dams for erosion control at the pond outlet drain pipes at HW 100 and HW 200. Plan sheet C20 construction details. The table of values for end section outlet erosion protection stone riprap have mislabeled HW locations. HW number 4 should be HW number 1, and the last HW number 6 should be HW number 200. In quotations, it is mislabeled as HW number 6. Plan sheet C25 construction details. Typical sand filter section. Consider adding a column to list the elevation for the proposed underdrain inverts. Perhaps call it elevation F for filter number 1. The invert is 151.00, and for filter number 2, the invert is 162.00. Please add the dimension for the thickness of the filter media portion of the surface sand filter detail. Surface sand filter section. This detail essentially duplicates the typical sand filter section detail. Is it necessary? If so, the elevation B values are incorrect, and consider adding another column to the table of values to reflect the proposed underdrain invert elevations. OS number 101 and OS number 201 detail front view. Please add a dimension from the bottom of the orifice to the bottom of the OS structure basin, or add elevations for the basin bottom for each structures. Plan view, the inlet pipe is a 6-inch underdrain, not a 24-inch pipe from a manifold T, and the 12-inch outlet pipe goes to HW number 100 and HW number 200, not HW number 3 as listed. Trash rack detail. Is this to protect the pond number 3 outlet where, question, please specify where it is to be placed. Perhaps some dimensions for the trash rack should be added to this detail to ensure the design intent is met. This completes my review of the revised subdivision plans. If you have any questions, please call me. Luke Herring, professional engineer. Have you, the applicant, opportunity to review this, and are they entertaining these? I assume they're going to entertain these recommendations by the engineer.
Yes, so just so the board understands, as I said earlier, we've been trying to solve the drainage issue first. Some of these things in here, the sand filter and stuff like that, would go away if the waiver was granted that, but we would address all Luke's comments. We don't have any issues with that there.
Does the board have any questions? I'll state it again.
Yeah, just for clarification on C12, because it looks like Keach Nordstrom replied to every one of these. And it was just one that was just a little different. Do you want to see how they responded, or you read C12 here about the roadway plan? Consider adding some stone check dams for erosion control at the pond outlet and drain pipes at HW 100 and 200. And this was your response there. I just want to make sure that's okay. That's the only one that was different. Everything else matched. Your response is like the, at the bottom. What was that? Just
Yeah.
peaches.
I can state, just so the board understands, this manager's not with us right now. I'm going to work this out with Lou.
Okay.
If he wants riprap
Oh,
there, this
it's-
statement saying this low
yeah.
volume is really, it's rock. It's a gold piece of rock. I'm just going to take care of Lou and make sure he's all set.
Okay. It didn't look
Yeah, it's pretty
like a
minor.
big deal, but I just want to make sure that was the only one that was a little different. Everything else matched 100%. They had a response here, that's all. Okay. All right.
At this time, I will open it up to public comment. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this project at this time? Hearing none, I will close public comment and bring it back to the board. So we have a recommendation from our planner to approve the waiver request that has been submitted to us this evening. What is the board's feeling on this? Do we want to approve this? Feeling good about it? Okay.
You want to make the motion?
So essentially, I mean, we need we need an approval recommendation for the waiver. This would be waiver for the subdivision regulation 155.5.1 on the stormwater management and erosion control. And as I said, it's the planner's recommendation to approve the waiver. So do I have a motion?
Make a motion to
All right.
approve.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have discussion? All right. Oh,
As Jay recommended, with all the plans being cleaned up.
okay. So you want to add a
This is
condition?
just the waiver, not the approval.
Yep. Okay.
So, okay, yeah, this is, yeah, right. This is the waiver. So we're not, and then we have to go to approve it. So, right. So I have a motion. I have a second. I have discussion. Any more discussion? On the waiver issue, all those signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, abstained. Motion carries 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 0, 0. Okay. All right, that takes care of the waiver. So now we can go to the approval. And if you want to, make your, whatever your condition was that you.
So we're approving the plans again, but just under the conditions that we had before, right? The same conditions of approval?
Yes,
Yeah.
so it would be to approve the amended plan. And I suggested, just a few bullets, including that the plans be amended to include the open space lot as was approved on November 5th. Satisfactory resolution of Lou Karen's comments in his letter dated January 19, 2020, and then just an affirmation that all the other requirements, conditions of the approval granted November 5th remain in place.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to
Okay.
conditionally approve based off of those. Lou Karen's comments are resolved. The open space lot on 3A and that the other conditions of approval granted on November 5th, 2019 are still in place.
Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have discussion? All right. All those signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, abstained. Motion passes 7-0-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
John, keep going. Sit there. Sit there.
Okay. Next item on the agenda this evening, number 2, Mel's Funway Park. Proposed amendments to the site plan approved on 1/15/19 to show the following. This is a continued hearing from January 7th, 2020. Replace Carnage Haunt with food service and temporary attraction area. Ship lap siding on pavilions 1 and 2, T1-11 to remain on pavilion 3 behind the facade. Expand kiddie area to allow family gathering area. Show overflow parking, employee parking, and storage areas. Minor modification to landscaping and certain construction details. Is the applicant present this evening?
We are indeed, Mr. Chairman.
Would the applicant introduce himself to the board?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. My name is Andrew Perlman. I'm an attorney with Perny and Perlman, Nashua. With me at the table tonight is Wayne Caulfield, one of the owners of Mel's and the underlying trusts that own the properties that make up Mel's. Also with us tonight is Matt Peterson from Keach Nordstrom, project engineer for all things Mel's.
Okay.
I would, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I would just assume just kind of run through Mr. McCara's comments. I think we can address the comments. I have Jay McCara's comments. I have a letter from Luke Heron. Earlier today, I submitted amended notes to the plan. Did everyone get those? Please say yes.
I did say proposed amended notes.
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
This document here?
Yep. So I wanted to go over those because I think we can address a lot of outstanding issues. We had overall no substantive issues or comments with what Jay and Lou had suggested to the board. So we have no issues addressing all outstanding staff comments. If I may just run through, I'm not going to touch on each one of the comments because we've addressed those in various notes. But let me begin with the third comment on the staff report from Jay. And this has to do with the temporary or portable structures in the food service and temporary attraction area. And let me begin by saying we had a note on the plan, note number 2. And what we are proposing is to amend note number 2 with the first proposed amended note that I submitted earlier today. And I'm going to read it through, and I'm going to go over some of the provisions in here. So what we're now proposing to address the concerns in the descriptions in the staff report goes like this. The food service and temporary attraction area depicts the general location of the vendors and attractions which shall be used for Spooky World events only from August 1 to November 30th. There will be no more than 10 food service vendors in the food service and temporary attraction area. The zombie paintball tent, the bar tent, the food service trucks, and picnic tables shall be removed from December 1st to July 31st. Now let me break that down. First off, the dates that we're proposing from August 1st to November 30th to have this food service and temporary attraction area is for the setup for Spooky World and the breakdown of Spooky World. And we're not proposing any additional dates. Spooky World is still going to remain the 22 to 24 dates, how the weekends hit over any year. But we need that time from April 1st to the start of Spooky World for setup of tents, as a staging area for all the various haunts. And then we need from the first weekend in November to November 30th to break it all down and have that food service and temporary attraction area go away. So for most of the year, from December 1st to July 31st, that's just going to be an open field out behind the pavilions. But from August 1st, we're going to start bringing material and trucks and tents and all the paraphernalia that goes with setting up the Spooky World start up on August 1st. But again, it doesn't change Spooky World, doesn't change Spooky World dates that start mid-September, run through October, and the first week in November. That all stays the same. The temporary attractions in there, you'll recall that we're removing the Carnage Haunt. And so we're trying to fill that void. So the temporary attractions, besides the food service vendors, could be anything from a pumpkin display. They bring a pumpkin, you can have $5 off your ticket. They've done food pantry drives, big buckets, bring some canned goods, you get $5 off a ticket for the night. Could be a bounce house. It could be any number of things that are going to go in there and kind of complement the food and the bar tent and the zombie paintball. And again, it's that flexible temporary use in this area. It could be a bounce house one year. It could be pumpkin display another year. It could be something else. A third year. The zombie paintball is something that they've been doing for since the start of Mel's. The food service, the food service vendor, they've been coming to the site siesta shows for at least 10 years. Right?
Since the very first year, yes.
So this is all the same operation. We're just concentrating in one area for the Spooky World. The next note, and I would certainly take any questions along the way if you want to ask before I move on to other ones.
Well, I'll ask the board. Does the board have any questions so far? The applicant.
My next note that we will be adding in here, I'm not following the comments exactly because this note, one of the comments from Luke Herron was that he wanted a better description of the zombie paintball. And so what we're going to add a note to the plan, or we're proposing to add a note to the plan that says, the zombie paintball attraction is an enclosed 40 by 80 tent where Spooky World guests use paintball guns tethered to tables to shoot live zombies and other Litchfield creatures. We could delete that last portion if you want, but so what these are is, you go to a Canopy Lake Park, you go to an amusement place, you have a gun with a little tether attached to a table, and you can shoot the balloons, you can shoot a target, same type of thing. These guns are not going anywhere. They're tied to a table, they're tethered down. You can pick them up, you can move around a little bit, shoot your zombies. And the tent itself is a standard 40 by 80 white tent. The tents get inspected by the building department and the fire department before they can get used for guests. Again, routine Spooky World operation that these folks have been doing for many, many years. The next comment had to do with seating areas and portable restroom locations. We have a note 24 that shows that we have, I think, no less than 30 porta potties at the site. And again, these are scattered throughout the site. We could show these on the plan, but they're gonna, they may move year to year. They may move week to week, depending on how lines are flowing, depending on the number of crowds they're having. If they're having a rainy weekend, you're not going to have the as many porta potties being used or serviced. If you have great weather, there may be more brought in. So we could show those on the plan, but it wouldn't necessarily depict where they're going to be any given year, which is why we're not showing it on the plan. We're having 30 scattered throughout. There are some in the parking lot. There are some in the Mel's Spooky World area. There's some out by the Haunted Hayride. So the start of the Haunted Hayride. And they're scattered throughout the park. Again, we could show them, but it doesn't make sense for us to show exactly where they're going to be because there isn't an exact place where they're going to be. They move around from year to year.
I have a question.
Please.
So what would be the reason to show that on a plan? The actual location for this comment?
I was going to say the initial comment was in response to just this being a food service area, and the idea that if you got a food service area and a bar, that it would make sense to at least show an approximate location for where restrooms might be.
Okay. So seating areas and typical portable restroom locations should also be known.
That was the comment.
I didn't know I don't know what. So it's an approximate location or?
From my view, or from my comment, yeah, approximate location is really what I was looking for.
Okay.
And mainly that's just to ensure that they are there, that they're an adequate number, but also because where you have an area that's kind of undefined with a lot of activity happening, it's kind of good to know approximately where things are going to be because there's a lot happening in a relatively small space.
And we're not opposed to that. It's just, these things are going to move a little bit from year to year. And so perhaps we could have little shaded box areas. Right?
I'm assuming there's a general area these are going to be in.
It's in multi areas around.
Yeah. And if it is an approximate area, I mean, maybe just show, this is where we would have those facilities if we needed to have them in there. So I think the idea, or probably the intent, is to at least have them so that people are aware that's where these things are going to be located.
That's fine. I mean, we can show that on the plan. Just as long as we understand that they're going to shift around a little bit from year to year. Where'd Matt go? You taking notes?
Yep.
Okay. They're sticking with this food service area. We're going to add a note to the plan just to provide more specificity. And we're going to add a note about the tables in the bar tent. It goes like this. The bar tent, and again, the bar tent is shown in the plan as a 40 by 80 tent. Same thing, white tent. It's been used for many, many years. The bar tent shall provide approximately 10 picnic tables, and the food service area shall provide approximately 10 to 12 picnic tables, subject to the approval of the New Hampshire Liquor Commissioner. Now, this is important because Mel's has a full liquor license to sell out of the bar tent, but they only end up serving beer and wine. But before they do any of that, they get set up. They build the bar tent. They build the bar. They put out their picnic tables. The picnic tables are moved from the corporate tents that you see on the side of Charles Bancroft Highway. Sometimes you see all the picnic tables kind of stacked vertically. Those picnic tables get picked up and moved over to the food service and temporary attraction area. And once all that is set up, the liquor commissioner comes in, among other inspectors, to sign off on the setup, that they're satisfied that there are going to be enough tables, there's going to be enough food service to complement the selling of beer and wine. So we are proposing to add a bar tent note just for more specificity for that feature. Jay had a title block note on the plan that remains outstanding. That is true. We will pick that up on our next draft of the plan. It's small, picky matter, but that is correct. That little piece remains outstanding. There was a question about the haunts. You will recall that we will be putting the shiplap siding over where the T111 is there today on pavilions number 1 and 2. Pavilion number 2, the rear of pavilion number 2 is going to be a little bit different because it's going to have big windows, kind of garage door type windows. In the back of pavilion number 2, when I say the back, the riverside as opposed to the Charles Bancroft side is going to be a merchandise area. We're going to have the scare cam selling pictures. So you're in a haunt, you're scared, you get a really ugly picture taken of yourself, and then you can go buy it or not buy it or delete it. and other miscellaneous merchandise, hats, T-shirts, just general stuff that we would see. And in addition to that area, there's also going to be a haunt in Pavilion number 1, a haunt in Pavilion number 2, and the existing Brigham Manor. Is that the name of it? Haunt
Yes.
in Pavilion number 3. Another comment of Jay's toward the end of his bullets had to do with the sidewalk across the street and when that has to be completed. And we're modifying the existing note to say that the parking construction as built 4 foot wide asphalt sidewalk shall be completed by the earlier of the issuance of the certificate of occupancy for the bumper boat or August 31st of this year. And August 31st is a date. Jay and I were talking earlier, and there's a method to the madness having to do with the compliance here, which I'll come back to. So those are the additions or modifications to the notes that we're trying to address outstanding concerns. We are showing overflow parking to the south, to the left of the Laserplex building. One comment from Luke Karen was that he wanted to see how we're going to be showing that parking. And Matt Peterson is going to be sketching out 75 spaces rather, or as many as he can get. We may not get to 75. If that's the case, we'll bring that number down. And that is proposed to be on the grass, and it's intended to be overflow parking only. Not unlike typical overflow parking, we see overflow parking all over the place. The Griffin Memorial, the middle school has overflow parking on grass and dirt areas. It's very common. Mike and Wayne have been doing this for years. And the nature of the overflow parking next to the Laserplex is for both Mel's over the course of the summer and also for Spooky World. And over the course of the Mel's season, typically it really only happens on really nice weather Saturdays, where the park gets a good crowd just for the park features, the baseball, go-karts, mini golf. And then there may be a big birthday event or a corporate event. And so rather than have people walk across the street in the middle of the summer to the lot 18, that sand pit lot, it's preferred Mel's operation to just keep them on the same side of the road and park on the grassy areas. And they've been doing this now a handful of times, 6 to 12 times a year, including Spooky World, without incident and without complaint from either neighbors or the police department or anyone who watches over us. We also use this area during Spooky Worlds on a slow night, on a Thursday night, it's a rainy Thursday night, rather than go across the street, rather than open up the entire cornfield. If they don't have that many guests coming, it's preferred, again, to keep these folks close, keep them on the same side of the street and park there. If that fills up, then they go across the street, or then they use the big cornfield to the south of the whole site. That's the nature of that. We're not proposing to stripe it or pave it or curb it or drainage basins or anything like that. It's just grass. It's not used often, which is why we're asking for that. And we had a waiver submitted to that effect, Mr. Chairman, not unlike the waiver that we submitted for the big cornfield parking. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, the cornfield parking is this area in here is a great big cornfield that Charlie McQuestion, or the McQuestion family, probably Matt now, works, runs a cornfield out there when the corn is harvested. Mike and Wayne bring out great big rollers filled with water and mow it all down or flatten it all out. And they use that for, Spooky World, good nights of Spooky World. And we've had site walks, just of the newer members, but we've had site walks out there, and It doesn't fill up often. On a good night, they'll maybe use 2/3 of that field. But when I refer to the cornfield parking lot, that's what I'm talking about.
Now, this parking area, can would this also be for, like employees of the park as well? And where-
Not this area.
Okay.
Spooky World employees park across the street as they have been since like 2008. Not in the sand pit lot, but on lot 14, and I'll point that out. But this area for next to the laser plus is for guests only. And again, because where you have busy Saturdays or you have slow Spooky World nights, we want to try and keep folks on the same side of the road as much as we can. And similarly, Mr. Chairman, we are showing that we have employee parking, and we have a note to that effect, note number 6, across the street on lot 14. And again, this lot right in here, and that's like similarly, this used to be like an old farm stand, the DeRocher farm stand, but again, it's a cornfield that is for employee parking only during Spooky World only. And Mike and Wayne have had up to 150 cars out there. Again, the corn comes down, the field gets rolled and flattened. And again, it's all done with the supervision and coordination with the police department. And I believe our note is to that effect. Note number 6, overflow parking in lot 14 shall be employee parking only for no more than 150 cars during Spooky World events only. On the existing field and shall be coordinated with the Litchfield Police Department. And again, that's we're repeating what they've been doing now for over 10 years. And when they first met with Roland Bergeron and then later Kevin Lynch, this was presented to the town, and they were given the okay to do it just because of the temporary nature of this. And we've been speaking to that for many, many hearings with this whole project.
So if this is going to be only for Spooky World events only for the employees parking, what about the other time of the year? I mean, where are they going to park? I guess is my question.
The employees?
Yeah.
They park on site. There's
So they can park on site
Yes.
during the regular season, and then when it's Spooky World, they're going to use that.
well, I mean, remember, we have a limited number of employees during the summer. There aren't that many employees. When Spooky World comes in, there's an army of employees. Right? There's a lot of bodies that show up.
You know the number of employees for Halloween versus regular season?
Should I
Yeah,
introduce
yeah.
myself? Or-
Yeah, yeah.
That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Wayne Caulfield. I'm one of the owners of Mills Funway Park. And yes, roughly Halloween kind of balloon somewhere about the 100, between 175 and 225 employees to put on a show, somewhere in that neighborhood. Of that number, roughly about 100 to 125 are actors, and the rest is support team, ticket takers, cashiers, makeup, that type of thing. That's for the Spooky World entity. Mel's generally takes on a regular day about 7 employees to run. Just generally, I'm talking about when you talk about the attractions. When I shouldn't say per day, I'm saying 7 per shift as an example. Like, we have 2 attendants in the go-karts, 1 in the batting cages, 1 in mini golf, now we'll have the bumper boats. So plus the manager, so maybe 7 to 8 usually. So there's a huge difference between, the employee parking for Mel's versus Spooky World. And I'm sorry when I say Mel's, I'm dividing the two. Spooky World is part of Mel's, but hopefully I answered that question okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just maybe just a few other comments. last time when we were here, Mr. McCarra suggested a period of time by which everything has to get done. And we like that concept because we want it to be done. I'm sure the board wants to be done with all things Mills. So what we did is that we are proposing with the last note on the plan, it's now note number 30, that number will change because we're adding some notes, but still. It says the improvements shown on this plan as amended shall be completed no later than August 31st, 2020, exclusive of any appeals of the approval. And the reason we chose that is because that gives Mike and Wayne enough time to get all this stuff done. They hope to be done much sooner than that, but that gives them a little wiggle room and hiccup room to make sure everything gets done to the town's satisfaction. And then jumping ahead a little bit with respect to the compliance portion of tonight, we are suggesting, and Jay has suggested, that the board continue the compliance hearing until the first meeting in September. So we will know if Mike and Wayne got everything done. They're going to be in good shape. The compliance issues may go away. If they didn't get everything done, we have a hearing scheduled to, address, anything outstanding. But working with Jay, we thought that would be a good approach to keep the pressure on everybody, on Mike and Wayne, on the town officials, state officials who inspect everything. So that's why when I mentioned the sidewalk across the street and parking, the additional parking that's being proposed, that has to be done by the earlier of the bumper boat certificate of occupancy or August 31st. I have not been by the site. I understand the bumper boat work is kind of moving along. It is Mike and Wayne's goal to have everything open by like June 15th with COs to issue, but we are providing that extra additional time to August 31st. So we're proposing that, Mr. Chairman, for the board's consideration.
So my understanding then is that you're looking at June as the time for the certificate of occupancy to be issued?
Exactly.
Is that what
Exactly.
I'm understanding?
Yes. Positive.
Well, they hope to have the bumper boats open when the weather gets warm enough to operate, right? So that's the goal. But again, we are providing that additional time to August 31st, just in case.
So what is the, what is the status of the certificate of occupancy at this time? Can you answer
Oh,
that?
we haven't applied at all because we're not done the bumper boat.
So you haven't applied for it?
No. And we won't until the bumper boat is
So
complete.
the bumper boats have to be completed before you get the certificate, is that?
And the sidewalk done across the street and the additional parking toward the back roughly behind the Green Monster area. There's some work to be done before we can even apply for a certificate of occupancy.
But you expect this to be done, everything to be done by August 31st?
Yes.
Is that what you're
Yes.
saying?
Yep.
Does the board have any questions for the applicant?
I do. Just going back to the porta potties again,
Yes.
you said minimum of 30
Yes.
at all times.
Yes.
Just want to make sure I
Yes.
get it clear.
Yeah.
And just reminded me, we also have we provided a note, if I can find it real quick, where we have no less than 11 temporary light fixtures will be situated around the site during Spooky World events. And again, Spooky World events only. And we're not showing these on the plan. We have a general idea where they go. But again, they may shift around depending on what food vendors are out there or where, lines may be accruing or gathering one year as opposed to the next. And again, we would have no objection showing approximate areas of where the light towers would go. But again, with the understanding that, they may shift around a little bit from year to year, depending on the use of that particular year.
Or you could put that, put like a note like that in the plan that basically
Sure.
they could shift around, but just if you could give the approximate where these things would be.
And that's fine. But, you know, we didn't show it on this draft, again, because they do move around a little bit, but we could show like a, you know, a gray shaded area on the plan, you know, approximate area of the light towers. And they're the same light towers that you've seen out there over the years. You know, it's got the little motorized generator at its base. It goes up,
Yeah.
how tall?
20, 20 feet, maybe.
20 feet.
Approximately.
Shine down on the pathways and the parking lots. And, you know, that's nothing different from what they've been doing. And that's all I had. I will say this, last week I sent the plans as submitted last week ago today, actually, to Attorney Hollis. And, you know, I was asking for any comments that they may have. And about 2 hours ago, I got a 7-page letter that I scanned. I really didn't have an opportunity to go over it, you know, thoroughly. But again, some of the comments in here, I think we've addressed the August 1st and November 30th. We're not asking for any more Spook World. The bathroom and the light fixtures, you know, it's the Talking Head song, the same as it ever was. You know, we're doing the same operation that Mike and Wayne have been doing for years. There was concern about the merchandise sale. It's really a small piece of the puzzle in the back of Pavilion number 2. And, you know, we are going to address Luke Karen's concern with respect to the parking layout next to the Laserplex building. The parking across the street, again, that's been, you've heard me say this before. I've said it too many times before, but when Mike and Wayne first approached Roland Bergeron about, can we park across the street? Do we need to go to the site plan? Do we need to go planning board approval? The answer was no, because it was such a temporary use. That permission, again, with the supervision of the police department, that continued when Kevin Lynch was a building department head, and it's continued, you know, through this day. So this is no surprise, and we're not asking for anything that we haven't been doing, other than taking away the carnage and expanding the kiddie area, those type of things. And again, our last note, August 31st, I'm proposing the compliance hearing. And again, I just got this letter, so I can read, but not when I'm driving.
Text.
Jay, did we get Luke Karen's comments? I don't see them on the
They should have been on the site.
site. Unless I missed them.
Want a copy?
If you have a copy, yeah, I'll take it. Thank you.
Efficiency.
You didn't get any, Joan.
Sell a click.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I got that. Anything else?
Does the board have anything they want on? Yeah, go ahead.
The temporary lighting on number, I think it was 25, note 25. There was comment last time about the temporary parking might need temporary lights. Sorry. Do we need to have the lighting on the temporary parking lot addressed? These lights look like they move around, right? You said these 11 lights move around the facility.
Yeah.
Is that the same lights you use in the
Yes, have lights over here, right?
parking?
Yeah, same
Yeah.
lights. Yeah.
So
Mhm.
do you want that in the plan, or do you want to say just generic like you have?
We can show that. That's one of the 11 that we have out there. And
That was one of your concerns, right?
Yeah.
The parking. Do we all want to add that to the plan?
Yeah, I think it should be included. Or the note.
Note 25.
note 25. And that's fine.
You have anything else, Attorney Cronin?
No, Mr. Chairman, we've all been at Mel's for some time. Mr. McCara is recommending conditional approval. We agree with that recommendation. And we hope to kind of move this forward to moving it from this board to get out in the field and get these things done. That's all I had at this time. Unless the board had further questions.
Before I open it up to public comment, Jay, do you have anything to add?
Not at this point. No.
Okay. I'm going to open it up now to public comment. Is there any members of the public who wish to speak on this, this plan? We'd ask you to come forward, sit at the table, introduce yourselves to the board.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Morgan Hollis. I'm an attorney with Gottesman and Hollis in Nashua. I'm here this evening representing Jill Charbonneau, trustee of the Jill Charbonneau Revocable Trust. Jill's husband, Rick, is here seated next to me. And we do have a number of comments. I guess I'll first preface it by noting that the revised plans, according to Jay's memo, were received by NRPC on 1/24/20. They were dated 1/22/20. I didn't receive them anywhere near that date. I received them much later than that. Jay took about a week to review, which I think is about average, and I took less than a week to review. So I apologize to Attorney Perlman that it was last minute letter, but by the same token, this is a pretty complicated set. I was looking for certain things on the plan, as has been noted to you this evening. Even you received amendments to the notes today, which I haven't seen and which I've just heard, but do take some of the wind out of my sails. But I'm not here to put wind in the sails. I'm here to add comments to what we've been commenting on now for well over a year and a half. And I think some of those notes, again, amended notes, I think are going to address some of the comments that I made in my letter, which I'm going to deliver to you. But didn't have the liberty of knowing what they might be. But I think those amendments point out that the application was deficient at the time it was made on some of the very items that this board asked the applicant to make. So it's my job as representing the abutter who has followed this process to point out those deficiencies. I felt it was appropriate to share them as soon as I was able to get them in writing, share them with Attorney Perlman, and that's what I did today. Apologize to him that it was certainly last minute, but that's the nature of the beast. That's the way these things go. He can control his plan. I can't. I can control what I say. He can't. Before I get started, I want to point out a couple of things. I just want to read them because they're provisions of your ordinance that are relevant to all the points we've made since back in 2018, all of last year, and now today. Section 120.1.1 of your regulations requires that unless waived in whole or in part by the planning board, the following traffic impact study and internal traffic circulation plan is required for all site plans. And it goes through the traffic impact study, and you've waived that previously, and likely in this amendment, it doesn't require a change, in my opinion, because we're not adding significantly. But the internal traffic circulation plan says, including the following: identification of all access points, parking areas, drives and aisles, walkways, structures with entrances and exits defined, directional arrows to indicate the flow of traffic, drop-off areas, and or other limited or no parking areas. It's pretty obvious why that's in there, because people want to know how you get in and out of where you're parking your car and where you're walking to. And tonight, we're going to talk about two important parking areas, which there's a waiver in front of you. So I think it's important that you realize what regulation you're waiving. Section 120.2, pedestrian safety and access, calls for provisions for pedestrian circulation within the site and between the site and adjacent uses, and public rights-of-way shall be clearly delineated. Walkways may be required to allow for the safe movement and circulation of pedestrians between principal or accessory buildings or uses on the site to parking areas located in excess of 200 feet from principal or accessory uses or structures, and between rows of parking stalls within parking areas in excess of 12,000 square feet. Section 120.14, which is the specific section asked for which waivers have been asked, and there are written waivers presented to you this evening, says that adequacy of the off-street parking and loading. Parking areas shall be located to the rear or side of proposed principal structures and may not be located within 50 feet of any public right-of-way or within side or rear yard setbacks. Parking areas shall be screened from adjacent parcels and public rights-of-way and shall be landscaped according to certain specifications. They have green spaces, etc., tree covers, signage requirements. That's what's being asked to be waived. And finally, there is no reference to either seasonal or temporary structures. We talk about all these temporary structures, but there is no reference in your requirements that you don't have to show them on a plan. You don't have to give details about them. It's all required as if it's regular or not. The only reference to seasonal or temporary structures is in 180.3, and it's a little bit helpful, but it says seasonal and temporary structures used solely for agricultural use shall be exempt from site plan review. Seasonal temporary structures are those erected for a period of use not to exceed 180 consecutive days and are disassembled on a seasonal basis. So it's helpful in that, under your own definition, any structure, unless it's agricultural, cannot be classified as temporary or seasonal. And it must be shown on a site plan, and it must be presented under the requirements of your site plan, which includes renderings. So every structure that they're putting out there, whether they're going to take it down or not take it down, it's a structure, and under your regulations, there's no relief. You must show the renderings. That's what we've kind of said from the beginning, and we're finally getting around to that, but there's still a few loose ends to that. And they're also supposed to be disassembled on a seasonal basis, and we know that doesn't happen to some of these structures that they call seasonal or temporary and that they're asking for your approval for. Those are the regulations. It is a long letter, but I'm going to read it because I think it's important to the board, and I want to submit it as a letter to the board. So I think you can just follow along with me, and then you don't really have to necessarily listen to every detail because it'll be in this letter.
Thank you.
My client has a number of concerns about the proposed application as opposed to it being approved. The opposition and concerns are as follows. First point, as a preliminary matter and introduction, I refer back to the January 27th, 2020 staff report. It should be January 7th, sorry, which cited its own October 23rd, 2018 letter. So that's how far back these issues are going. Identifying 4 critical issues as follows. The need for an all-inclusive site plan for Mel's, including everything on the property that would be used seasonably or otherwise. The actual or estimated numbers of people attending the different activities and functions operated on the site, including corporate events. The timing of the operations for all functions by day, month, and/or season. And parking requirements for all planned activities and operations, including any seasonal operations and any off-site parking that would be used. That's what your staff was asking for as early as October 23rd, 2018. We're still not getting all of that information so that you can make a reasonable decision. In the separate staff report as to the above application, which is dated January 7th, 2020, the report listed a series of matters of concern, which I've broken into 7 topics or concerns. Although the most recently submitted site plan addresses some of the issues, there remain other outstanding concerns and objections. As I said, some of these that I'm raising have now been addressed, as I've heard tonight, through an amended set of notes, but they didn't exist as of the plans and documents which I had in my possession. And I understand they were submitted today, the amendments. And I applaud the applicant for making them because they do answer some of these. So forgive me as I go through these, you'll say, oh, that box is checked off. And I will agree with you that that box is checked off in some cases. Jay's notes, intended use of the family gathering area should be clarified. However, in any proposed structures, seating, or other improvements should be noted on the plan. Note 4 of the plan states that Kitty Mel's area shall include up to 12 movable picnic tables and open canopy tents. That's a step in the right direction. Concerns. There should be a picture, depiction, rendering, or some other schematic of the tents, in that this is required under your regulations. Again, back to the fact that you can call it whatever you want, temporary, seasonal, but there's no provision for that. We have to see what they are so everybody knows. It's going to be this kind of a tent. It's not going to change. If it's going to change and go from a less permanent tent to a more permanent tent, they have to come back here. That's why we've had this problem, because on prior plans, we've seen tents, notes says going to be removed, doesn't get removed, permanent structure goes up. We've seen structures with siding changes. We have to have it specifically delineated. That's what your requirements are. That's what everybody has to do. Are the tents proposed to be seasonal? That is, they will only be up for part of the year, taken down in the winter. We've got some answer to that tonight. Again, that needs to be specified, and it sounds like it will be in the next set of notes. What do these tents look like and how will they be secured? Is this to be considered a structure and the same to be reviewed by the building code requirements? The representation is that they will be, but that should be put in the notes. They are to be reviewed because you're approving a plan and you want to know that it's going to be safe for people who are going to be using it. Where are the tents to be located? Recognizing the picnic tables may move rather easily, but tents do not. Will these tents ultimately be replaced by a structure? I think those are all fair questions. As I say, some of the questions have been answered, but you may want further answers, or the applicant may be able to further address them in the notes that he's going to add to the next set of plans. And if you want to go to conditional approval, my advice would be conditional approval granted that you answer all these questions raised in Attorney Hollis's letter, which I think are pretty easy, and they're answers you should have. I don't think that it defeats the application. I just think it's important to put it down in writing. Removal of the Carnage Haunt and its replacement with a food service and temporary attraction area that includes also a zombie paintball attraction is unlikely to increase demand for parking or otherwise impact the site in any significant way, assuming that its use is limited the operating times for Spooky World. The intended use, including the types of temporary uses contemplated, and intended hours and days of operation should be clarified and noted on the plan. In addition, the buildings and structures proposed should be described and elevations provided for all buildings designed other than temporary or portable structures that are to be used seasonally only and subsequently removed. Seating areas and portable restroom locations should also be shown. Note 2 provides that the food service and temporary attraction area depicts the general location of vendors and attractions which shall be used for Spooky World events only from August 1 to November 30, and that there will be no more than 10 food service vendors in the area. Plan sheet 5 shows the area graphically. Concerns. Here's my number one concern, my client's number one concern. This is the first time we've heard dates of August 1 through November 30. And I raised this on the phone with Attorney Perlman, so I'm not shocking him. We've never seen it before. Planning Board's never seen it before. We're now opening up a door. What's going to go on between August 1 and November 30? There's been an explanation tonight that it's a setup until a certain date, and there's going to be only 22 to 24 days of Spooky World. I think it's important to pin this down. I think somewhere you all have to have this. If it's not in the notes, I've got a better suggestion, which I really think you ought to have as a development agreement for this project. I think you can make a conditional approval upon the development agreement, including everything that's been represented. There's precedent in this board. Continental Paving was required to do a development agreement. There's another development agreement out there. Those deal with the details of what you're allowed to do on your site so that nobody has to go back and say, well, gee, it's not quite in the minutes that way. Or can we even find the minutes? Or is it even explained in detail in the plan? I think Attorney Perlman did a great job of explaining what he's going to put in the notes. But that's going to be a couple weeks from now before you see it. You're going to have to scramble back and say, did it say everything that he said he was going to say? So I take him at his word and the representation that Spooky World is not going to change. But believe me, 5 years from now, when Spooky World is successful and they've sold Spooky World, and the next owner comes in and says, well, it does say in there August 1 through November 30, it doesn't say anything less than that. We don't all want to be here arguing that, no, you can set it up, but you can't use it. You can't occupy it. And I don't care if it's not Spooky World. I don't want to read that it's Fall Festival. I don't want to read that starting August 15th, it's the, end of summer festivals. And so we've got all these tents out there, so we might as well use them. That is not approved by this board. And that's not what they're saying they're asking for. It's a 17-week period and not the 6 weeks that was originally represented in 2017 and not the 22 to 24 days, which again, we heard tonight. This is a third of a year. At what point does temporary become non-temporary? And I think you have to ask for that detail. It's clear the temporary or seasonal appears to be expanding. I'm going to take that back because we've heard a representation it will not, but I do think it needs to be detailed. When the planning board recognizes this is no longer temporary seasonal and the plan and the use must comply with the town regulations, for example, specifying the size and nature of the food service vendors. That's what's described, food service vendors. We know there are food trucks, but are there going to be something else? Or will there be a structure in lieu of a truck? How many trucks? What size of trucks? Can they all fit in there? That detail is not hard to describe. I understand it's going to vary. 1 week it might be 2, as Attorney Perlman told me, and I agree. If it's lousy weather, you're going to have 2 vendors maybe, or no vendors. If it's good weather, you're going to have 10 vendors. But I think they can still be described and identified and demonstrate that the 10 trucks could fit in there. The dimensions are 10 by 25 or 12. I think they're about 10 by 28 maybe. They could be shown to fit in there very easily as examples of how they might fit. The bathrooms, I think we've talked about the bathrooms ad infinitum, and I agree with Jay. It's been our position that it's a good idea. We're focusing the food, we're focusing the wine and the beer and wine. We're focusing where activities are going to take place there, but we don't know where the bathrooms are going to be. And I think it's important for this board and for the public health that you're in charge of regulating that there be some balloons or shaded areas saying, we're going to have bathrooms in this area. I don't even care if you identify if it's 1 or 10 or just say bathrooms, porta potties, wherever they're going to be. So you all know somebody's going to have to enforce this, and you get a complaint. Hey, there's no place to go to the bathroom. People are using the woods. You can say there's supposed to be a bathroom in this area, folks. So I think that does need to be delineated. And I think I heard Andy say they're going to do it. So I'm just making that note that it should be done. It's not on there. Temporary lighting. Same concern. There are some critical areas where lighting should be. I think you should know where they're going to be and see if that satisfies you. I believe it's not too hard a job to do. Again, some shaded areas, maybe some critical lighting out by where the food and the bathroom area might be, some area, lighting for where the parking might be. Maybe one of the walkways has lighting. I'm not sure. I think they could easily address that. But the one thing they haven't talked about is the temporary lighting, other than they just represented tonight, they're 20 feet high. As you know, when you review a site plan, one of the critical issues is, where's the lighting? What's the ambient lighting? Is it going to spill over? Is it going to impact the neighbors? I do believe that they should explain to you what that lighting is going to be, where it's going to be, and what is going to be the spillover, if any, because taking these people at their word is fine, but if and when they sell it, the next guy is relying on a site plan, and the site plan doesn't tell you where that lighting should be, how high it can be. Continental Paving has some pretty powerful lights. They pave roads at night. If you stick one of those out next to any of your neighbors, you might as well just give up sleeping at 12:30 at night, at 12:30 in the morning on a Friday and Saturday. And that's not fair. And I know that's not what you want, and that's not what they intend, but let's cement this down. So these are kind of important details for everybody. C, additional door and roll-up window openings are proposed in the pavilions. Note 3 states that a 20-foot by 50-foot area in the pavilion number 2 will be used for pictures and merchandise sales. Plan 5 reflects the area of the pavilion. Concerns here are pretty limited. There's no further explanation as to what picture or merchandise sales consist of. I think we've heard an explanation, but that could again be included in if not in a note, if the detail of the note that is going to be added doesn't include it, the development agreement is perfect. Will the sales be for only Spooky World? Again, 22 to 24 dates. or will it be the entire time frame from August 1 through November 30? Should be a definite description of what's being sold, how it's being sold, the times and dates of operation. D, the purpose, extent, and number of spaces included with the proposed overflow parking area shall be specified and surface treatment, if any, described. Note 5 on the plan indicates that overflow parking on lot 17 shall be used as needed for Mel's and Spooky World events approximately 12 times per year and will hold no more than 75 cars. A waiver letter has been filed requesting a waiver of the regulations which require paving, drainage, features, maintenance, etc. on the basis that full compliance will be a financial hardship to the applicant. Here's where we disagree with the staff recommendation of conditional approval. Here's where we disagree that this board should grant approval of this seasonal temporary overflow parking. In no way does the waiver request, the plan, or the notes provide the detail requested by the staff. Further question arises into who is going to police the number of times per year that cars park in this area and what will be the threshold for parking. That is, will it be one or more cars? Or will it have to be up to 50 cars? If they park 2 cars there on a Saturday, does that count as one of their 12 days? Probably not in their mind, but does it in our mind? I don't know. There are going to be some people who will think that counts, but we ought to decide. The applicant has previously stated repeatedly, both on the plans and in presentations, that there's more than adequate parking for Mel's operations. That I've heard. That is in the record. That's been an explanation. We don't need any more parking. We're all set. And yet now they need 75 cars, room for 75 cars for some of the time of Mel's, not just for Spooky World, some of the time for Mel's. The applicant has presented no evidence of the events and circumstances where such parking would be required, and if there are such circumstances, this plan should be denied as failing to meet the parking requirements. This is with regard to Mel's. Mel's operation should be on its own 4 legs of the table. Wherever the parking is, that's where it is. If you need overflow parking, don't be parking in a yard area. Don't be parking in the 50-yard setback from the road. That's your regulation. Don't be parking over next to the neighbor's driveway. Show where the parking is going to be. Stripe it in either on the plan or in the field. Show how many cars you can get. I tried to lay out 75 spaces. Can't be done.
And just to point out one more thing, when we were in here last year, they removed 25 spots because they had plenty of parking. Okay, if you remember on that site plan, where they put the bumper boats, they removed 20 or 25 spaces because they had plenty. Now they don't.
And I'm not saying that that might be a good place for parking, but it's not a good place for temporary parking where it's not even shown on the plan how you get there. How do you do it? Drive off the end of the pavement? As I look at the site plan that's up there, there is no good real access point. Where are the parking aisles going to be? This is public parking. This isn't even employee parking. So when I, as a public person, pull in there, how am I going to know where to park? Is someone just going to say over here, over there? And then what if the attendant doesn't happen to be there? You got mayhem going on. So in particular, on this particular request, we ask that you deny it without further detail. If more detail wants to come in, they can amend the plan. You can consider whether it meets all your requirements. Is there landscaping? Did it get paved? We don't think you should grant the waiver as to this overflow parking. That's not the right place for it. You know what? If they don't have parking for Mel's, which I'm going to guess if it says approximately 12 times a year, 6 of it might be Spooky World, 6 of it might be Mel's. They're going to have an issue 6 times a year. They got to figure it out. As to the Spooky World overflow, they've got the whole cornfield. That's what it's there for. Don't stick it in the front where it's not supposed to be. By your regulations, it's not supposed to be there. It's supposed to be in the back of the structures. So don't give in to this. We urge you. If you're going to prove it conditional, I would urge you to say, except for the waivers not granted, no overflow parking. E, the number of spaces to be provided on map 20, lot 14 across Route 3A for parking should be specified in the surface treatment of this area, if any described as well. Number 6 of the plan, note 6 of the plan indicates that employee parking for no more than 150 employees during Spooky World events only will take place. Additionally, a waiver request has been submitted for lot 14, so on and so forth. Here are our concerns about this. this individual site has never been evaluated as to such an activity as being independent of the current use of the property, whatever that may be. Nor has there been any application before the Zoning Board of Adjustment requesting use of this property for off-site parking, a use which is not permitted in the town of Litchfield. There's nothing under your zoning ordinance. I've told you this before. I haven't heard any contradictory evidence, but you can't use property for parking for another property without relief from the zoning ordinance. Any approval of this plan will signal an approval that such use is permitted under the zoning ordinance, as there's been no determination as to this use alone. Appeal of that decision goes to the zoning board and they can decide. Well, the applicant has argued that the planning board previously determined Mel's was seasonal and its accessories use, including parking on the lot immediately opposite Mel's, which is owned by a third party, Carcano, are therefore grandfathered and immune from appeal. It may not do so in this instance. I've heard this evening that this has been going on. They've been parking their employees there for 10 years. It's never been shown on a plan anywhere, never been received permission that I've seen, never received a permit that I've seen. This is the first time it's come up. And if you grant this approval, it's the first approval of it. There needs to be this portion of the application should be denied as determined that zoning is not allowed. There needs to be some definition as to where these parking spaces will occur, and that even though it's employee parking is nevertheless a significant number of cars that could be placed in all kinds of position without regard to safety of either pedestrians or other cars, be they employees or not in the area. The applicant may argue, well, hey, it's our employees, it's our risk, we can decide where they want to park. No, it's your job. It's your job to decide where they should park and how they should park, and whether the field is adequate or inadequate. If the time frame is narrowly defined, maybe it is adequate. But again, I urge you to consider that this is a zoning decision in addition to a planning decision. Who's going to enforce just what cars are parking in this area to ensure that there's adequate lighting in this parking for safety? Who's going to determine that they're employees or they're regular customers? Nobody wants to be in the business of enforcement of this. Should there be screening on the borders of the lot? Somebody lives next to them. Maybe there's not a house right there now, but somebody lives next to them. How close can they park? Shouldn't there be some evaluation from this board? How close, what lights, whether the car lights can push in the direction of the abutter? You may recall many months ago, there was a original application for a paintball facility in this area. And one of the big issues is, what are you doing to screen and buffer with your neighbors? It's the same issue here. I guess as a final, at no time in the past has the applicant ever stated there's a need for 150 car parking spaces for employees only during the spooky world. Such parking should be provided in the area identified in the previous plan approved as overflow parking. I thought we made some tremendous progress. Everybody, community, applicant, opposition. We got a cornfield. We all agree it shouldn't be paved. We've even identified how many cars can go there. Everybody seems to be satisfied. There's adequate parking there. And now they want to say, well, we don't really want to use that. We want to park across the street. That's not right. That's just not right. If parking are for general use throughout Mel's operating season, and I'm just quoting what was said, then the parking spaces should be delineated both on the plan and the field. Again, I think that goes to the parking on the Mel's lot. As long as it's employee only, I don't think that was the comment that Jay meant to have a delineation for employee parking. We think that it should be. The plans and notes do not reflect any delineation or even a suggestion that the number of spaces can fit. Rather, the applicants made a blanket statement that the overflow parking will hold no more than 75 cars and a maximum of 150 cars are packed on this lot. Kind of interesting misspelling, but packed on the lot is what they said. Further, the applicant has requested a waiver of all regulations as to these spaces. I think I've reiterated my concerns. So I don't know about you, but 150 cars is a lot of cars. They're out there for 22 days. There's no control over where they're going to be, how they're going to get on there, other than the police are going to direct them on and off. I just don't think that's what your standards allow. And finally, there should be a 6-month time frame established. I think we beat that to death, but I do say in here that I think this is an ideal application for a development agreement. I attached a copy of what was done way back in 2002. I happen to be the attorney who had to negotiate with the town's attorney to get this on record. It takes some work, but it's one document that tells you all the rules. You're not looking for a plan. You're not trying to find a plan that might not be recorded and that somebody's lost or someone can't find. I just think it's a good idea, and I've recommended it, but it's really up to the board. I think there were a couple other issues not covered by Jay that have not been addressed this evening that we raised at the last meeting. One of them is noise. It's clear that they have established their operating hours to 12:30 a.m. on Fridays and Saturdays for Spooky World. It's clear that they've been operating that long. What's also clear by their statement is that's when they stop selling tickets. But the rides continue in the haunted provision. They're out there till 1 or 1:30. That's the way it is. We accept that. But I think this board has some ability to clarify that and say, look, the issue of noise has come up. That's never been discussed and was never permitted. We think that all noise should cease at a certain time. And there is no noise ordinance, so we can't impose upon you any particular standard. But I think you can say there should be no gun firing, which is what they do out there, after 10:30 or 10:15. If you live nearby, you're going to be listening to it. And I don't think they would necessarily be opposed to it if you did that, but I urge you to consider it. So in closing, my client does not wish to put forth any claim or effort that would attempt to close down or foreclose the operations of either Mel's or Spooky World division of Mel's, but rather have the planning board, the community with a plan and end result that can be monitored, enforced, and understood. And we've asked you to either deny as presented or address the issues raised in this letter with the applicant, continue the case for further amendment, deliberate on these issues, and specifically the need for a development agreement. As I suggested, I think we've heard these amended notes are going to be put on. Maybe they can be put on, maybe they can be incorporated in a development agreement. Maybe you can grant a conditional approval subject to these issues being addressed. Maybe Attorney Perlman will say that the two areas we disagree, I think we really disagree on is the parking, and that'll be your decision. You'll have to decide that. I think the rest are either going to have been covered or will be covered, so we're not very far off here. So those are my points.
And the only thing that I would say is we've asked in the past for an engineer to look at traffic flow. And that still exists, though you did waive it. But if you look at, just drive by, if you look at where the bumper boats are, and if you look at where the parking is, how many times have you seen cars drive into buildings? I mean, this is the parking stall, that's the bumper boats. Okay, God forbid that anything happens, but these are the things that are out there. And they're very, to me, they're dangerous. I mean, go look at it. People drive in buildings all the time. And here we are, we're gonna have our kids. I mean, I'm not gonna let my kids bring their kids there, but that can happen because there's nothing there to protect them. Look at the site plan. So there's people walking in all the traffic. There's no rhyme to reason where people are walking and where traffic's going. There's none. Look at the site plan. And they keep saying, we've been doing this for 10 years. We've been doing this for 10 years. They've been doing it for 10 years because nobody ever enforced anything for the last 10 years. Or much of it. So they've been getting away with it for 10 years. We wouldn't be here. No different than originally on the original site plan. It said the temporary haunts. I sat here in the meeting last year when they said we have to be able to move them. Some of you guys, board members who were out there, went and looked at some of those permanent temporary haunts that aren't going to be moved. They have to be ripped down to be moved. So when they say they do it all the time, this is what we've been doing. Yeah, that's what they have been doing. But they've been getting away with it too. So we need to make them do what I was required to do. do a development agreement so that it's all there, it gets recorded. Anybody can go and look at it. Anybody can go to the registry and read it. And no, we don't have to go chase a set of plans. It's all right there. That's what I had to do. I had a big operation. I had a lot of moving parts. I had to do a development agreement. They should have to do the same thing. And that would solve a lot of these things that they've always done, that they say they've always done. And they have. I'm not denying that they haven't done them. They haven't done them in accordance with the plans that were approved originally. In a lot of cases. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Are there any other members of the public who wish to comment this evening on this point? Okay. Attorney Broman, do you have anything you would like to add?
Couple things. Mr. Chairman, first let me just address that last comment, because we've heard it so many times now, we're just sick of it. We've not been getting away with anything. Anything we've been doing out at the site, we have come to the town, as I've said this however many times. Mike and Wayne go see Roland Bergeron. They go see Kevin Lynch. They go see the temporary Peter Rowe, I think the guy's name is, the temporary building inspector. And they either get their permits or they don't. They get sent here for the Laserplex sign way back when, or they don't, or they get a building permit. To say we're getting away with things is offensive and we're tired of. I'm also very disappointed to hear that the Charbonneau grandchildren won't be coming to the very safe bumper boats, because if you recall in the plans, the bumper boat has in between the parking lot and the bumper boats, there's a sidewalk with a raised sidewalk. And so, not to say that trucks couldn't hit that sidewalk, but this is not, this has been reviewed by staff and Luke Karen, and that issue has not been raised. So, crazy accidents do happen, but they are rare. Let me say a couple other things. Talking with Mike and Wayne before tonight, I did say you have to think about your bird cannon, that loud banging. And so we are agreeable. And we could have a note on the plan to this effect that bird cannon stops at 10 p.m. Any night. Saturday, Sunday, Thursday, Friday, all nights of Spooky World. That's not an issue. I wouldn't like it if I lived nearby. I don't think a development agreement is necessary in this instance because we are setting ourselves up with a compliance hearing, and we're going to know where these guys stand if they are in compliance with the plans by the end of this summer, or if they're not. I've used development agreements before, and they are they can be useful. They can sit on the shelf and do nothing, right? Which is more often the case. But I don't see a development agreement is necessary here. And honestly, how many times have you folks done development agreements sitting on this board? They're very rare. It's not a tool this town uses often. Next, the parking across the street is removed from your consideration. We are pulling that from the plan entirely. So
Employee parking.
for employee parking,
Employee.
the employee parking, we don't want to get tripped up with lot 14, even though we have received permission from the town, just like we did with a Carcano lot 18. Again, historically, it's been used for years with the permission from Roland Bergeron, with the permission from Kevin Lynch, because it was such a temporary use of the site, and because it was under the supervision of the police department. But again, I don't want to get tripped up with that lot, uses of that lot, zoning board appeal. It's not worth it. We do have the cornfield. It was convenient for employees. It was convenient for guests, because guests, we're not, you prevented a conflict between employee parking and guest parking, but we'll make it work. The cornfield is plenty of parking for the employees. We do want to keep the temporary overflow parking around the Laserplex building. Again, Luke Karen had a comment to that effect, that he wants to see a layout for that, and we will address that. And Matt Peterson and Keach Nordstrom will sketch out a plan. We don't want to have to pave that. We don't think it's necessary to pave it for the limited use, both for Mel's and the Spooky World operations. Again, if we don't have to open up that big cornfield on a slow, wet Thursday night, and we only have a couple hundred people coming to the park and a bunch of cars, we can park them in the parking lot. We can park them on the overflow. Yes, prefer it to stay closer rather than to walk all the way from the cornfield. And don't forget that while lot 13, I believe it's Mr. Bouchard's lot. He's got a lot of stuff on his property, but our immediate abutter is Mel's, because the back lot is owned by Mike and Wayne, where Joan DeRocha lives now. And so our parking in that area is separated by a driveway, and it's and again, they've been doing it for years without issue. We don't think more impervious area is the answer here, given the limited nature of what we're proposing. There is added parking on the plan that we go back from our last plan approval, which was over a year ago now. You will recall that we added some parking out behind the Mel's red big building and by the Green Monster area. So we have that added parking there because of the bumper boat was Mr. Charbonneau is right. We did remove some parking for the bumper boat, but we do want to keep the overflow guest parking area around the Laserplex building. We have a waiver to that request to the board, and we believe that it's in the best interest of town not to have additional impervious area, and it acts as a hardship to the applicant having to lay that out with drainage and costs and paving and all of the above. We do believe we've addressed many issues with as raised by Attorney Hollis. Just one other comment. We put some dates on the plan with respect to the temporary food service area and the temporary attractions for August 1 to November 30th. That's what they've been doing for years anyway. They usually start up with or without dates on a plan. They start up their build out and their Spooky World in August. They break it down after that first weekend in November. They get rid of it. So that's what we're proposing, is what they've been doing. And again, if we want to put a note on the plan that says 22 to 24 Spooky World dates max. So if these folks do sell Spooky World and Mel's, a buyer would be bound to that. That's fine. We can add a note to that effect. That's actually a good idea. And again, Attorney Hollis and I do this for a living. We believe we've addressed these issues with the bathrooms and the temporary lighting. We can show where it is, approximate areas where they're going to be. But there's a lot of rehashing of issues that we've been over time and time again. We believe that we should be looking at conditional approval from the board tonight. We should be looking at the waiver approval. And if there are notes to plans that we can tweak based upon Attorney Hollis's letter, I'm not opposed to that. And we tried to do that with the notes that we went over earlier. And I think that's it, Mr. Chairman. Do you have anything for Wayne wants to chime in?
Yes, just two issues, please. I think we've been over this before, just to jog your memory. We do close the park down. We do our best to get that closed by 12:30. We we differentiate the evenings by calling them school nights or not school nights, because when there's a holiday, that Sunday effectively becomes like a later night. So we call them school nights. So on school nights, we actually, it's not true that we sell tickets up until 12:30. We have never, ever sold tickets past 11 p.m. In the history of Spooky World, past 11. It doesn't make any sense to do so. We can't, economically, it wouldn't make any sense to do so. And again, on school nights, we close our ticket booth at 10 p.m. I don't know if you need that noted on the plan or not, but that's historically what we've always done, and it's worked out very well for us. And we do our best to get everybody out.
Note 27 on the plan has hours of operation.
Okay, that's the hours of operation, but the ticket sales is different from hours of operation, just to be clear. So, this ticket sales end at 11 p.m. The hours of operation go until 12:30 a.m. Because, and the second piece I'd like to discuss, I have some photographs here for the town. It's a common occurrence that basically I'd like to pass these around. It's a common occurrence that both the town itself parks on the grass on a constant basis. The school system. I have photographs. And also, ironically enough, I believe Rick Charbonneau spoke to the selectmen's meeting and addressed himself without Attorney Hall's presence, that I own specifically Passer Conway during that meeting. And here are pictures of Passer Conway also with overflow parking on the grass. So here we have the abutter who's complaining doing the same exact thing. And those are from this here on two different occasions.
Do you have anything to add? Anything you want to comment on? Or do I-
No additional comments at this point.
Okay.
Certainly happy to chime in as we move forward.
Something to lighten up the evening.
So you're saying that you're going to basically eliminate, what was it, note 6, which would be the employee parking across the street. You're going to take that out
Yes.
completely?
Yes.
So it sounds like there's a number of modifications that are yet to be made. Some of the notes need to be added or deleted. Is that right? So I think I'd like to see those. I mean, I'm not in favor of doing a conditional approval until we actually get to see everything. And I mean, I do think some of the points about, for instance, the lighting and where it is in relationship to abutters would be important to know and for me to get a better understanding of. I would encourage you to put the note in about the noise restriction. But there were other things that we talked about. You're talking about the parking and the other issues. I just think that we ought to have all that information in front of us before we go forward. And so whatever we need to do for that, that's my personal preference.
I don't disagree with that. There's a lot. There's more than just a couple clean up things.
Right.
Throw it as thinking. Clean it up.
Like Attorney Hall says in his letter, I would like to deliberate on these issues and try to digest it because we're just getting it right now. So.
Okay.
Okay. So, I mean, certainly, I think that you've heard from the abutter. I think I think a lot of these issues, the parking issue, I think that's going to be important to look at and to consider some of these concerns. But I think it's important that we have a plan put together so that we can take a look at it and review it and see what's, what we have, what we need, that we at least have the notes that we need on the plan, and that if there's anything that further needs to be considered, then we can move forward from there.
Might I suggest March 3rd?
Okay. Would it be possible for you to get the plans to Jay and maybe to Attorney Hollis by like a week ahead of time or something? Or if you can get them as soon as possible so that they can have an opportunity to review them?
I will be in Morocco at that time, but I'll have,
Well, if you can have someone designated to take that.
I just have a quick question. Is Keith Nordstrom doing both things here tonight? Hell with these. Okay, this caught me off guard. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, yes, we will get plans in early. I will get them to Attorney Hollis. And we'll make sure you have those. Because there's not a lot of heavy lifting. It's a lot of small notes and details.
I've got to leave here this year, so.
You've always been good.
Does anybody have anything else they want to add this evening? I think it's probably best that we probably continue this to a date and time certain, get some more information, give the applicant an opportunity to provide us with information regarding the parking issue, and see what we can look into that a little bit more. It sounds like there's other little things that, can be tweaked on the plan. I think you've done, I want to say, did a good job of trying to, point out different things like the porta potty stuff, the paintball, the bar tent, the pavilions, and all that stuff. But as I think it's important that I don't think we're ready yet to make that leap to a conditional approval until we have all our ducks in a row. So, March 3rd would be the meeting.
Congress from Morocco.
Make a motion to continue this until meeting on March 3rd.
Okay, I have a motion to continue. Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have discussion?
Yeah, real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can we just make sure that if there's any comments or ancillary documentation that we have enough time? Because I got some of this stuff today, and then
Right.
We should get, as a board, just sitting here reading 9 pages, okay? It's like, especially at a meeting, it's like going to sleep. All I'm trying to say is, get it to us about a week in advance so we can at least read it and have any concerns or questions to address back to Jay or whoever.
Understood.
Yeah, it's helpful to us to be a little bit
Yeah, of
more.
course.
And I mean, especially because I don't have anything for Luke Karen. So, I mean, unless someone else did. So we didn't know that Luke Karen had made suggestions. So, and like I said, if we can get that information, that would be helpful as well. All right. So I have a motion. I have a second. Do I have further discussion? All those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 7-0-0. This hearing is continued to March 3rd. The public hearing is still open. It remains open.
Who's going to be a lawyer?
And we will see you on March 3rd. Thank
Who's
you.
going to be a backup?
Oh, no, yeah. It's gone that week.
I'm going out.
Like the board's going to take a 5-minute break.
Morgan, you aged me. You aged me.
I'm aging? Only in your eyes.
You behave.
I was gonna ask you for the same thing if you got one.
40 years in the business, and I know a lot of development lawyers, because they've always tried to sue me too. They always try.
Bye.
Take care, Andy. See you.
For the, we'll keep it for the record.
Do you want the Lou Karen notes to be yourself? Can I take a picture of that?
What's that?
Can I take a picture of
I'll
that?
grab them. Sure. Having fun, James?
Did you want them back?
Was it everything you thought?
And more, Mike Rogan, and more.
Oh, that's right. He's got them in his phone.
Great points. That 9-page.
I'm sure he took them with his phone.
We have some holes in our plan, in our ordinance.
So what I'll do is,
We've brought them up in
I'll
the
set up the
past.
site for
Yeah, and
March.
it's
We
not
need
like
to
this is
start
all-
to, yeah.
Populated.
Not like we haven't been
absolutely,
doing a
yeah.
ton of
I got
work.
something else to put.
Now,
You don't want to be back here again.
We're still on TV, guys.
Cassidy.
That's okay.
So everything is,
That's a good idea.
I think this desk is a little too big for the space we got in there. We're still on the,
We are.
so be careful what one says.
All right, we're gonna move on.
They're watching us outside, you know that. Okay.
Obviously we can, I think, bypass 3 because the compliance hearing, that's gonna take a precedent, the amendment takes precedent over that for now. I'm gonna move to number 4, Windsor Drive extension to a 2-year maintenance bond. Reduce bond amount to $15,289 for 850 feet of roadway. Joe?
Okay, so, this road finally got paved on November 11th. I think I put this letter in the site. And then I get the engineering news index amount from Lou, and then do this, calculation. That's how we come up with the number. They have 29,000 right now that's been sitting there for a long time, a bond. And so I'm saying return 13,762 and keep the bond at 15,289.
Hello. The maintenance bond, correct?
Maintenance bond, correct. 2 years.
2 years, if I'm correct, right? Okay.
Right.
I know the base has been very good. It's been there for 12 years.
That's good.
It's all saying.
Okay. Jay, do you have anything to comment about this bond or?
No, I concur with Lou's recommendations.
Okay. All right. So it's basically ready to be placed on the 2-year maintenance bond. It just needs a,
They have a cash bond, so we can return some of their money.
okay.
They're both like.
All right. Well, if anybody has any questions,
I'll make a motion.
you want to make a motion?
Make a motion that we turn the bond into a maintenance bond as required by the subdivision regulation for 2 years. Any or all money that is still in there that we can return to them, please do.
Okay. I
That
have,
procedure.
second.
and do I have discussion?
Who seconded that?
James.
You see the hand go up?
No, I didn't.
All right. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 7-0-0. There was something else. What's this? Maybe Joan, maybe you can explain what number 5, Charette to the west, 220.
That just came in today, and I put that on the site. It was kind of timely. I had a call from Rich LaSalle yesterday or the day before, and he's interested in pursuing affordable housing, like we've talked about many times in the past. And this came from the Workforce Housing Coalition of Greater Seacoast. And they're picking towns in this area from Auburn to Pelham, Hudson, Nashua, Salem, Merrimack, the maps in there. And you can apply for a charrette, and then explains what a charrette is. And they'll come and see, work with you and to see if any of your areas would be capable of affordable housing.
So
They have a, what makes a desirable host community on a flyer that they send.
So basically, it's competitive. You have to apply, and then if Litchfield prevails, then they will bring in, some team of experts to work with the public in kind of designing how affordable housing could fit into the community. That's basically the gist of it.
oddly, this comes in right after the zoning amendments. You know what I'm
This
saying?
this wouldn't be till
It won't be till
April,
next year that
and
we
then,
do anything.
fall of the proposed date is the fall of 2020, so it would be for the
Mhm.
following year that we had any zoning changes.
Wow. Being that we just received this thing, we should read it and put it on the next agenda if we have any more discussion. I think that's a good thing to start, because we just got it today and yesterday,
Right, it just came in email today.
so.
Okay,
Good idea.
sounds good to me.
So I have nothing else on the 18th. Do you want to carry this to the 3rd, or do you want to do this February 18th?
I think we carry it to the 3rd. We've already voted to do that.
Wait, you don't want to do anything the 18th?
I know, let's see, the 10th is the cutoff for March 3rd. We've already passed the cutoff for the 18th.
Okay, does this have to be an agenda item? This is just a working item. It can be on the 18th if you wanted to meet.
Oh, you mean the charrette? I'm sorry, maybe
Yeah,
I
I
was
meant the
confusing.
Yeah, the charrette, it's just.
Miscommunication, excuse me.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, we can do that. That's
Right,
fine.
because it makes
The
sense.
18th. Yeah.
You want to do this the 18th?
Put on the,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
When you said the 3rd, I'm going, I don't want to be here again.
I thought you were talking about Mel's. I'm sorry.
Nels is gone.
Got it.
Right.
Why should you guys do this once, not twice?
Well, if we're going to chat about that on the 18th, maybe we could also chat about what master plan chapter to do next.
I was just gonna say, yeah, we should do a workshop.
Excellent idea.
I think that will be the next approach.
Very good.
Okay,
Are
great.
you awake back there? Okay.
This isn't due till April 10th.
Yeah, we got time.
I've always picked on it.
Let's see. Okay, thank you, Joan. Committee reports. Any reports from any committees? Do you have anything, Kim?
No,
Yeah, please, yeah.
Heritage Commission that meets next Tuesday at 7.
Okay.
What was that? The Heritage Commission?
Heritage Commission, yeah.
11th.
I'd like to just say that the deliberative session went well. You got up and spoke nicely.
Mhm.
Everything seemed to go fine.
Yep.
Check off time. That's it. Voting. That's when it all comes together.
And thank Jay for
Don't
his.
forget next Tuesday, the big day. And the 12th, the commercials will stop.
I know, I gotta spend my day at the polls, I was just told.
Yes, you do.
Yep.
I'll be there to
I'll be
inspect
there
you.
too. Bill
Yep.
Reynolds.
Oh,
Really?
no, you're one of them.
I'm taking count of how many select board members are there. Because by
Good.
statute, you have to be there.
Yeah, there's gotta be at least one there.
Three.
Three?
You all have to be there.
All three?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll bring Bobby in his wheel. He'll be healed a little bit by then.
I did do the annual report for the planning board, and I submitted that to Donna Burrell. So that should be published in the annual report. Another thing, the town of Litchfield had its first CIP meeting, capital improvement plan committee meeting last week. And guess who was nominated as the chair? So, yes.
You can't say
more.
no, can you?
Yeah, no, I can't. Yeah. Well, it was kind of, they encouraged it, I guess, because I was the planning board. Anyway, but yeah, so I will be the chair of that committee. I'll probably be sharing some stuff with the board here, since it is a planning board function originally. So
Thank you for saying that part.
you can do that. Also, did I say the Conservation Commission is meeting Thursday, 7 p.m. in Town Hall. I did attend the last Lower Merrimack River Local Advisory Committee meeting. That one, I think I want to say Eversource was there. I guess they're doing a regional assessment of the utility areas in town, in the towns, Litchfield, Hudson, Merrimack, Nashua. So they gave a presentation. So, other than that, they are still looking for another Litchfield member to join the board. Officially, we are the only town that actually has one member, and that's myself on it. The other towns have at least two. So, but they keep trying to get somebody else. So
This is what, what committee is this one?
this is the Lower Merrimack. It's the Rivers Management Program, Lower Merrimack River Local Advisory Committee.
So what towns does that consist of?
It consists of Litchfield, Hudson, Merrimack, and Nashua.
Well,
And how often you meet?
We meet normally, well, we haven't had we usually used to have a consistency of having meetings the fourth Thursday of the month. But because sometimes we review DES permits for alteration of terrain and stormwater management, anything that's within the quarter mile of the Merrimack River, it has to be a project that has within that quarter mile. If it's designated in that area, then it comes under LIMERLAC. So
But it hasn't been every fourth.
it hasn't, because what will happen is the chair will say, well, we don't have anything on the agenda for this week, so I keep getting emails, we're not gonna have a meeting. So it's been pushed off.
Okay.
Although I think they're trying to get back into the rhythm of trying to get to have at least regular meetings, so.
So it's not just about the DES requirements.
It's not about the DES requirement. It's the enabling legislation, because it's under statute. It's essentially has to do with the Merrimack River protecting the Merrimack River, public access to the Merrimack River, and the function that basically that the river is a part of the community, and there's an interest in protecting it. That's what it is. So that's about it on that. Approval of the January 21st, 2020 minutes. Have anybody had opportunity to look at those?
Yes.
Okay, and do we like them, not like them, want to amend them?
They look good to me.
Okay.
Your motion to approve?
I have a motion to approve them. Do I have a second? I have a second by Ron. Discussion? All those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained?
Aye.
1,
Abstain.
3. Okay, motion passes, and we're 7 people, 4-0-3. Okay. I did want to make an announcement. I didn't do it at the last meeting. Tony Turecki, who was a member of this board, has stepped down. He is resigning. He did send me an email a couple weeks ago. I did send him an email back wishing him best of luck. He's been great on this board, and we're going to miss him. He's a good guy. Which means we have an opportunity to, because he was a full member, he was also the clerk of works of the board, whatever the title is you want to call it. So we may be looking for another regular member. Ron, you're an alternate. It's possible you could be moved up to regular status if you wanted. I mean, I'm not gonna, push you to do it, but if you wanted to do it, there was an opening to do that. And I'm not gonna vote on it tonight, but we are looking for someone to take the position of clerk if there's and really that position is, well, we have someone who takes the minutes, but it's sort of just part of the planning board. So if someone's interested in doing it, just let me know.
Get job description for it.
Oh, we have a great job description for it, yeah.
So we don't have a job description for
We don't.
No, there isn't much to say.
I thought I made that clear, but I didn't. Okay. So with that said, I'll let you guys decide what you'd like to do. But as I said, there is an opening for regular membership, so
I'd be interested.
you would be interested. Okay, all right, all right.
Welcome. We'll wine and dine.
Well, we could make that vote now, I think. If we wanted to vote to recommend to have Ron
No, it doesn't have to go to the board.
be a regular member of the board, so he would move up from alternate to regular member.
I'll make a motion to
You
do
make a
that.
motion.
Second.
We have a second. Do we have a discussion? All those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those
Don't
opposed?
change your mind.
Abstained? Motion passes 7-0. Congratulations.
That's how it worked with him too.
Look what happened.
You gonna send Troy a note to that effect? So they
Yes,
can
I
get
will.
paperwork?
I usually
You have to
do.
be
I usually
re-sworn
send
in.
that to him and he'll. Any other business before the board this evening? Jay, do you have anything?
I do not.
Joan, you have anything? Deliberative, we had deliberative session. I did present our zoning amendments. So voting is March, when is it, Joan? March 9th? 10th, excuse me, March 10th. So get out and vote. And other than that, if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Second, do I have discussion?
Really?
All those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 7-0. Thank you for joining us this evening. Have a good night.
Anybody, any discussion on the